The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsnyder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, and joining me again for the second week in a row, we said you'd be back, and we lived up to our promise, Jeremy Elliott. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'll come back every week if you want me to.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, we may have to get a new intro if you're gonna replace Eric Knopsnyder. My gosh, that's we may have to just start our own show here. I don't know, the J squared show, Jeff and Jeremy.
I like the J squared.
You like that?
I do like that. That's kind of catchy.
It's a little corny to me. I don't know.
So it's that soccer podcast where they have two men in blazers in a closet, but that thing goes across the country, and those guys make a lot of money. So.
Okay, well, that would be a start for us because I just spend money on podcasts. I don't actually make money on podcasts, so they must be doing something right. That'd be cool if we could do the same here at PA Power. But, Jeremy, there's a lot that kind of went down over this last week, and unfortunately a lot of the things that were getting headlines were not really the actual wrestling per se, the actual competition. It was more of the off-the-mat things. And the first one that I want to bring up is the Redland Hershey match. And I know you've read about this and we've talked about this. I even wrote a little column on this and gave my opinion. But this was a situation where Redland essentially wins the dual meet. They had two wrestlers that were on the mat area without their straps up. And before the book was signed, the referee decided to penalize those two wrestlers for unsportsmanlike conduct, and they lose 2 team points. Essentially making the match, the dual meet, tied, and then Hershey won it on criteria. Not necessarily how you get, that's not something you see every day. And from my little bit of research on this and my talking with Coach Brian Baglio and some of the things that happened here, it seemed a little petty, but Jeremy, I know you won't shy away from giving me how you really feel. So tell me, how do you feel this was?
Well, first off, I've always believed in sports that, and we've always heard the phrase, win it on the field. Wrestling's one of the few sports where you don't always win it on the mat. And I have a problem with this in that I do think it's kind of a petty rule in regard to they weren't taunting, there was no unsportsmanlike act. I think it's much like the NFL, and I've covered the NFL, so I know a lot about this. There's times you call stuff and there's times you don't. And no sport goes by the rule book strict. Holding in the NFL is one. Last 10 seconds of a basketball game, whether it be charging / certain fouls, things of that nature. We always talk about the rule book. It's an ebb and flow. And this is one of those cases. This was petty. This was something that really I've never seen before. Now, I read about this and I'm just like, once I heard that there was no taunting, there was no unsportsmanlike act, then this is pretty cut and dry to me. There is no reason for this. There was no reason for this to be called. Redland should have won the match. They won the match on the mat. And that's what we want to see. There was no unsportsmanlike. There was nothing thrown. There was no headgear thrown. There was nothing like that. This is one of these times where you eat the rule book and you don't enforce the rule of straps being down. And that's it. It's simple as that. And you can say, well, the rule book. And listen, in every sport, and I pretty much covered every sport, I even covered field hockey. The rules, there's times to enforce them, times they don't. And those rules, it's because it's an ebb and flow with the situation in the game. In this particular match, the match was over. There was no reason to do it. It's not like he took his straps off after winning, after getting his hand raised and taunting the crowd or anything. That, okay, you want to call that? That's fine. The line at the end where they're shaking hands, it's a shame for Red Lamb.
Yeah, and see, that's my thing is this was after the match was concluded. Now, there's two camps, right? There's the rules are the rules, and they should have known better, right? And I get that. And there's the other side that says, well, come on, really? Is this what you're going to call? And and I don't fault the referee in this case. I really don't, because I think. Not 100%, because I look at the rules and say this is a really silly rule. Like, we can't show nipples is really what it comes down to. It sounds like it's like you don't want to. And I've looked into this rule a little bit, and it seems like it kind of came out about. And I talked to my father about this, who's been around wrestling since 1928. It seems like, but it was almost like a sign of disrespect to the referee if you would take your straps off after the completion of the match. And that's really what it was in place for. And I can remember wrestling growing up and even in high school, we were saying, hey, it was Coach Swigert would always remind us, don't take your straps off, leave your straps on, because that was just, it was a cheap way of giving away a point because it was an unsportsmanlike. It's kind of like, and I hate to bring up Rod Wright in this, but you remember Rod Wright and the shoe incident with the taping of the shoes against Reynolds? Those are, you had talked about winning it on the mat. Those are cheap points that you can get. Now, the rules are the rules. They should have known, right? And I get that. But is this really where we're at in sports that a wrestler who has his straps down is walking across the mat? I don't understand the rule. The rule is really strange and really silly, and I don't think the rule belongs anywhere near wrestling. Unsportsmanlike conduct is not that. Unsportsmanlike conduct is the guy who is pounding his opponent's face into the mat on purpose, taunting. I saw a video recently of a wrestler who put it was an Ambridge wrestler wrestling Katie Mack. He put his opponent in a leg cradle, and as he was doing this, he was doing push-ups on the mat. Like, he was doing push-ups essentially as he was pinning the guy, kind of showing off a little bit, right? I laughed and I was like, man, that's impressive. Good for you, man. But other people were like, you got to hit him. That's dirty. That's unsportsmanlike. I'm like, well, if you're going to not call that, which I believe in that case he was not penalized, you have to not call the guy shaking hands. And Brian Baglio's biggest thing was his wrestlers were respectful. They had their straps down, but yes, they were shaking hands. I think I remember. I have to remember a few times after a match, walking across the mat with straps down, shaking hands, and that was just kind of, especially if you were the last match, you may not have time to put your shirt on. I don't know. It's silly. Here's
my thing, though, and I'll address each one of your points. If it's a nipple thing, then we got problems in wrestling because we see that every tournament.
We have problems in society, too.
But we see it every match when they're getting ready and they get the lift from their coach and so on and so forth. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the rules are not the rules. I don't want to hear that, because every sport has rules that aren't enforced.
All the time.
One sport that I've covered where all the rules are enforced all the time. I'll tell you what, watch the NFL games this weekend. You're going to see rules that aren't enforced.
Right.
Because you'd have holding on every play, and the flow of the game dictates at times, whether people like it or they don't like it, what's called. Watch the NBA. Last 10 seconds of a game. There's a lot more that goes on in that last 10 seconds than it does in the first 10 seconds. So the whole theory of rules are the rules, come on. That
you just completely say that's not even applicable in this situation.
Yeah, they're guidelines. And the other thing is, I do blame the official, because you're the one who called it. There wasn't anybody from the rules committee. Nobody from PIAA was sitting there. I can tell you this. If I was a referee, I would have never made that call. Would you have made that call?
I mean, no, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't have, but I'm not in that. I mean, I hate to Monday morning quarterback. You know, I hate it when I wrote a column essentially comparing police, which is kind of ironic because I found out later that the referee is a cop. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting, because that was my whole comparison, was me as a law enforcement officer. And I kind of learned this through my career, is that, people are always quick to Monday morning quarterback, especially a cop, in making a split second decision. And I hate when people have never done it, really try to analyze it and sit down and make judgments on you. And I've never been a ref, but I've also been around wrestling long enough to know that there are times, and my biggest issue was the consistency. And when the PIAA made a statement on this, they said, we understand that this isn't always consistent. And that's a thing. And I think the only sport that actually is super consistent is golf. I mean, I don't know if you've ever covered golf.
I've actually played golf, and I've actually covered, yes, believe it or not, I've covered golf.
So, I mean, the rules there are pretty, I mean, I don't know.
Yes, they're pretty standard. However, there's rules for the gallery too, and those can get pretty loose. And here's my thing too. This isn't Monday morning quarterbacking for a couple of reasons. Number one, police work is life and death. This is
sometimes,
not life and death.
So, no, you're right. It's a sport.
It's a sport. The other thing is, I get paid to be a Monday morning quarterback. I'm sorry, but in every sport I cover, that's what, at times. Now I try and be fair. And, that's up to, unfortunately, we have people in the media who aren't fair, and they're biased, and they're, either that or just flat out wrong. In this case, I have no axe to grind with either school. I don't have an association. I just look at it as this. It was one on the mat, and there was no taunting or unsportsmanlike conduct.
Right. There was no it was no flagrant. It was no, apparent disrespect towards the opponents or the crowd or the referee, for that matter. So I agree with you there.
So
it was
there,
not.
Case over. It didn't need to be called. There was no reason to call it. This is what I'd like to happen. Now, because there's two things. First off, you have what happened. You analyze what happened. Okay, now where do we go from here? And what I would like to see is an addendum to the rule book that says, if there is no unsportsmanlike conduct, taunting, whatever, then it's not called. If you want to leave it in there, fine, but put it in the context of just unsportsmanlike conduct, where it's taunting or showing off manner, whatever. If it's not anything like that, and I'm comfortable leaving that up to the discretion of every official to determine that, then it gets called. If it's not, and it's just one of these situations, then it doesn't get called. It's simple. And I would like to see the whole rule book like that, really.
Well, I mean, that would be the day if that would ever happen. I mean, what do you do, realistically speaking? Do you see this causing any type of rule change or an addendum, as you had mentioned? Do you realistically see that happening, or do you think this is going to fall on deaf ears?
Look, I think a lot of things fall on deaf ears and I think that's twofold. I think that's PIAA. I mean, they have a lot to worry about. They have a lot of different sports. I think we forget that, and I'm not necessarily defending PIAA, but it's true. They deal with a lot of high school sports. They don't have unlimited people in their offices. But I also blame the coaches. I blame, reporters. We are a flavor of the week issue type of society. We'll get all upset about something, and 2 weeks from now, it's gone because we move on to the next thing. And that always bothered me in everything. I'm going through some things in racing right now that I just won't let go. And the reason I won't let them go is because it's my responsibility I feel it's my responsibility and everybody else's to fix the problems. I want wrestling to fix the problems. And it's kind of like we had a discussion last week about the playoffs for the dual meet championships. And you said it's never going to happen. Well, I don't care. it should happen.
Right.
And I will be writing about it. I haven't done it yet, but I have a show this week, and once I get through that, I'm going to be writing about it. And I want it fixed because then we avoid this stuff. And then, the bottom line is, what if, and let's just throw something way out there. What if Redland misses the district championships by a couple percentage points on power rankings?
Yeah, then this really becomes an issue.
Or Hershey makes it in and knocks somebody else out.
Right. What if this was the playoffs, right? What if, and you had mentioned it in the NFL, like what if this was the state finals? What if this was the state finals dual meet championship, right? What in that case, and we talk about taunting, right? And I love this because after you win a state championship, you're not going to celebrate.
Exactly.
Can you construe that as taunting? Can you, if you point to the stands, if you jump up and down and you do a backflip, are you taunting? I've seen guys do backflips after winning state championships and then get hit with unsportsmanlike conduct and have a team point deducted. So,
see, I think that's ridiculous. And again, this goes.
But the rules are the rules, Jeremy.
No. They're not the rules.
I know.
I'm going to take it a step further, and I know this is a touchy subject.
Oh, boy.
Did Austin DeSanto get that takedown on Spencer Lee before the clock ran out?
No, he didn't. I mean, there was video evidence to say that he did not. But
the ref didn't want to make that call.
Well,
listen,
I don't know. There's a lot going on there, man. There's a lot going on there.
Hey, make the call.
Well, they didn't have video review. I mean, they didn't. I won't go that far to say, if you had video evidence of and which we wouldn't get until after the fact. In that situation, they got to go with what they saw and what they thought they perceived to be.
Because I was sitting next to you.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a takedown, but that's neither here or there.
What I'm getting at, and that goes back to the moment. Okay, you had what I'd be willing to bet what was seen in that match was probably skewed a little. And by the way, human nature, I'm not blaming the official. I'm saying human nature. You have 5,000-6,000 people yelling and screaming over what was probably one of the biggest moments in state wrestling history.
Yeah.
That influences the call.
Yeah,
and if we think it doesn't, then
we're blind to ourselves.
Yeah, it's blind. So all I'm getting at is, there's a lot of uncertainty in rules all the way across the board, and I'm not going to use to tie a bow on this. I'm not going to use the rules are rules just to make it okay, because we've just given a few instances in sports and in wrestling where that isn't the case. So if we're going to, that's why I want an addendum in the rules, and then you're taking the guesswork out of it, and then we don't have this issue.
Yeah. No, I agree. If you do something like that, it does take a little bit of the guesswork out of it, and it doesn't make it as I don't know. It's unfortunate, right? It's really unfortunate, in my opinion, to see something like that happen. I understand it's not easy. I understand there's a lot of complexity behind it, but at the same time, it's not something you want to see, and it's not something as a media member you want to have to cover, right? But unfortunately, like you said, sometimes you get paid to do just that. You have to cover and you have to speak your opinion. And I get it. The BIAA has a ton of sports that they have to manage. I can't imagine doing just wrestling alone. I mean, they have how many sports, and they have to look out for the welfare and the safety of the kids. And I get all that. However, as a wrestling community and as something that is looking at through that lens is like, we got to do better. I love Dave Heckard's quote in the follow-up article where he said, why are we talking about this? This is stupid. Let's talk about why we're losing wrestlers. Why is wrestling participation down so much? And I could not agree more with him, is that we're not focusing about the real problems. The real problems is the fact that wrestlers are no longer wrestling. We're losing wrestlers at a strange rate between youth and high school. Somewhere along the lines, we're losing people. So why aren't we talking about that instead of petty things such as straps, right?
I couldn't agree more. And, I think you and I were at the King of the Mountain, and I saw the new shorts and jerseys type stuff. And,
yeah, I think that was that your first time seeing the
yeah, and I thought it was dumb. I still think it's dumb.
I still think it's dumb. Well, hey, you know what? If I'm Redland, I'm not ever wearing a singlet again. I'm just wearing you know what I'm saying? I'm never wearing a singlet again. Brian Baglio, go out and buy yourself, compression shorts and fight shorts and shirts, and never wear a singlet again, because you never want to run afoul here. That you want to make sure your kids don't wear your straps down. Don't wear a singlet, right? So. I don't know.
I agree, but I still, but I guess the whole shorts and jersey thing was also a way to sell wrestling.
Yeah, it was. It was a way to attract
working?
more. Not good yet. I mean, we haven't really seen the. Listen, it just happened. Okay, let's give it some time to. It's
spaghetti against the wall with no proven facts that it's going to work.
I love the spaghetti against the wall. Where'd you even come up with that analogy?
It's what it is. We're going to throw.
Is that a Lebanon thing? Like, where do you get that from?
No, you're going to throw spaghetti against the wall and hope something sticks. Well, why don't we delve into why it's really happening? Which I don't know why it's really happening.
No, right. You got to do a pretty in-depth
you have to do
case
some
study,
research.
and you got to crunch numbers and things of that nature, which I'm not keen on doing at this point in my career. So. Let's put the bow on that, like you said, and we both gave our piece, and we'll move on from that. But I have to go to the next topic, which is, do you have a crystal ball or something? Because you sat here last week and we're talking about. In fact, I got a message from folks saying you disparaged Coach Rick Thompson and his crew at Bethlehem Catholic, and wouldn't you know it, he gets fired for coaching at Bethlehem Catholic after losing a match to Liberty, and then the guy who he replaces him. Is that not the craziest things? And I'm going to see Jeff Karam this weekend at Escapee Rock. I cannot wait to talk to him, just to hear, like, man, what happened? What transpired here? And I wonder if it has to do with the fact that his son, Luke Karam, at Lehigh, is out with an injury, and he hasn't been wrestling this year. Because I know part of the reason why he stepped away was to be closer to his family and get to see Luke wrestle. And last year Luke did. He wrestled. He was a solid starter for Lehigh, but he's been out of the lineup this year with some injuries. So I wonder if that played a factor into it. I wonder if this is a short-term kind of thing for him. But, Jeremy, talk about that.
When I talked last week, it was no reflection on Coach Thompson. I saw you sent me over what was sent to you, and it wasn't that I said Coach Thompson was bad. I'm just saying that I knew Jeff Karam. He's going to be tough to replace Jeff Karam. I think Jeff Karam's one of the best coaches that I've seen in high school wrestling. And wouldn't you know it, then what transpires? Do I have a crystal ball? No, but I've been known to say stuff like that in racing, and it ends up going down. So I guess that's just luck. But, look, when you're used to winning, when a program's used to winning, and for Coach Thompson, it's hard to follow and kind of keep that standard. And then they lose to Liberty. That ended that long winning streak. And people get nervous. And I would argue this, at a private school, nervousness leads to action quicker than it does at a public school. It just does. There's less hoops you have to jump through, so to speak. And I think they didn't lose to Liberty. Something, now we don't know what maybe was going on in the room or whatever. I haven't heard anything negative. I don't know if you have or not. I doubt it, or you would probably told me. So between the two of us, we haven't heard any negatives. I think it's just a case of, hey, you know what? We're not used to losing, and we lost, and maybe they didn't like how it shook out or whatever. And with Jeff Karam, like you said, I think that's good insight to Luke being off the mat this year with an injury, frees up some time with Jeff, and once they made the move, Jeff was available. Now I'm hearing it's on an interim basis, so I assume it's just for the rest of this year. But who knows? Things change in a hurry in wrestling, as we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we don't see that really in wrestling. You just rarely ever see something like that happen mid-season. And I am, from the articles I read, and for the folks out in the Lehigh Valley area, they've done a good job of covering this and getting both sides of the story. And I think Rick Thompson brought some things up to the administrators, school administrators, maybe earlier this year, and said that, you know, if these weren't fixed, that he wasn't going to be the coach any longer after the season. I think he kind of said, like, hey, there's some problems going on here, and I'd like to figure this out, or I don't plan on coming back after this year. And then the loss happens, and then he finds out pretty quickly that he is no longer, you know, and he kind of was taken aback by this and kind of shocked by this. So, you know, Jeff Karam coming back, I don't know. What is it? How much can he really do at this point? I mean, I don't think he's – I think it's more just a statement of fact to say Jeff Karam is going to be there. He's coached most of these kids before, right? So this is something that it's almost like he's picking up kind of where he left off in a sense, and most of these kids have you know, been at a high caliber, high level for a long time now. It takes a little bit more than just 2 months, 3 months to get this, you know, to change a kid's work ethic and to change – some things, but I think, like you said, having him in that corner period is just big for the program. Again, whether he's, you know, if it's an interim basis or whether this is short term, I don't know. I've heard rumors about who's already going to replace Jeff Karam and some crazy names there. So, yeah, it's kind of big though. I mean, you look at it's like Bethlehem Catholic's like the Yankees, right? I mean, they're the team that everyone loves to hate, but they still win. They still find a way to win.
I think Jeff Karam makes a difference all the way around. I think he can change the culture there if that needs to be done. I mean, I don't think the culture is totally destroyed in a month and a half, 2 months of a season. But I do think he's the type of guy that when he walks in that room, kids are going to respond quickly. I think Jeff Karam will do what's needed to be done if there is an issue. As far as Coach Thompson bringing things to light, I mean, that probably didn't help him. I mean, you come into a program and say that a program that wins as much as Bethlehem Catholic, and let's face it, it's about winning. Anybody that thinks it's not about winning, they're fooling themselves. And to go in there and maybe say that so early, say some things early in his tenure probably didn't help him. And
right.
Then when they lost to Liberty, it just gave, you know, Bethlehem Catholic administration an excuse. So you bring Jeff Karam in, quite honestly, state title.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
When they're going to win a state title this year now.
Yeah, well, first off, Nazareth just beat Liberty.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, and Bethlehem Catholic lost to Liberty by how many?
Uh-huh.
What was it, a couple points?
Yeah, a couple points, yeah.
Okay, that could be the flip.
And you're absolutely right. That could be the flip.
I'm going to say this now. Bethlehem Catholic will win the state dual meet championships in Class AAA.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Jeremy Elliott has gone out on a limb. This is a crazy pick here.
Why is it crazy?
I'm not. I'm being sarcastic. It's not crazy at all. I mean, everyone picked Bethlehem Catholic from day one, but then they lose, and all of a sudden it's. Yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised. I mean, they clean up a few things. If they get some folks back into the lineup that have not been in there, I think they change some things. And look, Liberty and Nazareth, those two teams, they weren't, but neither team was at full strength. There was for Liberty, Talreese Fleming, the third place finisher last year in the state tournament, was out. Nathan Stefanik from Nazareth was out. He's a state medalist. So this. You know, and we actually had Chris Heater from Kiski on our War Up podcast from Kiski, and he talked a little bit about the fact that, you know, it's a long season, right? And last year they lost to Canamac in the regular season and then came back and beat them twice in the postseason. So it's always going to be changing, right? Lineups are going to be changed, flips going to change, the starting weight's going to change. So anything is possible. But I agree, Bethlehem Catholic. Remember the fact that they've been there before. They've lived. They essentially live in Hershey. I mean, they should own property in Hershey. Sure. You know what I'm saying? So Liberty, on their hands, you know, they've never made it there as a team. So I think experience, and that has a lot to go. I think that plays a huge role in the fact of how confident you are in actually being there. Especially for those kids that are not necessarily used to winning, and those kids, those wrestlers that aren't going to make it to states. I think for them to come out and compete at a high level, you're going to be more likely to do that if you have that experience. I don't know. It's just my opinion, but you're calling it right now, Jeremy. You're saying Becca.
Yeah, I mean, the bright lights mean something. I think it always means something. I mean, Central Dauphin showed that many times on the floor at Giant Center, and I even maybe when I would say that Central Mountain team was a little more talented, when everybody remembers that epic deal there. But I think Central Dauphin, something about them in Hershey, and I think Becca has that now, and I think Jeff Karam has that. I mean, sure, there's times they've taken their lumps, whether it be in the individuals and stuff, and there was rounds that they had that weren't up to their standards, but they always bounce back. And I think Jeff Karam's good at getting his kids in the right frame of mind for tournaments. And that is shown over and over and over again. And I just think it's going to show again. Okay.
Well, we won't have to wait long for that to find out. I mean, let's look at just District 11, as we mentioned last week. This just makes this makes the conversation even that more relevant, because I think last week, if we go back and listen to the tape, you said something about Nazareth, and I said, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, because Nazareth kind of was up and down a little bit. And now you look at it and you say, okay, Liberty, Becca, Nazareth, and Northampton, all four teams I think could place top four in the state. No doubt about it. I think all four of those teams could place top four. Unfortunately, only two of them are going to make it to Hershey. This just makes it even more of a travesty. As you mentioned before, what if the Redland Hershey match was a state finals and that happened? Like these four teams, now that they're considered so tough, what happens when two of them aren't going to make it?
It's it is. You said it's terrible. I mean, it's bad for wrestling.
It's terrible. You sound like Charles Barkley. It's terrible.
It's bad for wrestling. And again, this goes back to the rules. Let's work a little bit. I know it's tough. Let's work a little bit and get the best product on the mat in a premier event. That's what we're not talking about an upset here. We're talking about a system that's not rewarding the team, not rewarding excellence. I mean, what are we teaching our kids? Are we going to teach our kids to strive for excellence, or are we going to teach them, everybody gets a trophy and we're going to participate and look, life isn't fair. I mean, you and I both know that.
I thought life was supposed to be fair. I thought we were all
guess
supposed
what?
to.
There's a lot of things that aren't fair, and I think we could say that the system not being fair is something they just have to deal with. However, I think the bigger message is you want your kids to strive for excellence. And we talked about it earlier. We want the sport to show that excellence, and we're not doing that. These four teams all should be in Hershey, or at least have the ability to wrestle their way to Hershey through pigtails on that Tuesday. So
give them a shot, at least, like you said. I agree.
And it's easy. That's the other thing. If it was hard, if it was something that was really difficult to fix, okay, I get it. If there's some logistical things, look, I told you what to do. You just take one spot away from District 3, one spot away from District 4, and you have two at large. And maybe the District 3 number 4 deserves it one year. This isn't that year. Trust me. And the same thing in District 1. Give both at larges to District 11 and let all four of those teams in. It's really easy to do. I don't know why we're not doing it.
Well, I mean, I think you kind of said it. I mean, there's a lot of things that would inhibit you from doing that, but being that it's not hard is one thing. It leaves your head scratching, thinking, okay, why is this still happening? But we could talk about this all night, but unfortunately, we're not going to do that here. We're going to talk a little bit about an upcoming tournament, and that is Escape the Rock, Jeremy. And this is an event that you and I have both covered before. It's becoming one of the best tournaments in Pennsylvania. It's just really stepping up its game with the number of competitors and nationally ranked guys here. And it's going down this weekend. I hope the weather holds off for us because, my gosh, I don't want to be driving out. I don't want to be stuck in Philadelphia. I mean, could you imagine being stuck in Philly?
Well, I might be stuck in Philly. So with the motorsports show I have to do, and I'm actually going down Thursday, which is a day early, and I might be staying until Monday. Who knows? The weather is great because it's the one thing you can do and be wrong 50% of the time and still keep your job.
And still be employed. Right. I know. I wish I could do that.
No kidding.
No, but unfortunately, and so, yeah, and I have work I have my real job to go to on Monday. I can't be stuck out in Philly, when I'm, covering the Escape the Rock, but nonetheless, it's going to be an awesome event this year. I'm looking through some of the seeds here. And Jeremy, I know you were able to look a little bit through the brackets from last year. So let's just start through weight by weight, and let's start at 106 pounds. And the big news here is Kyle Waterman from Council Rock South, the junior. He is dropping down to 106. He was at 113. You got to see him at the King of the Mountain. In fact, Finn Solomon from Franklin Regional beat him in what was at the time a big upset. But Kyle Waterman, he was a state medalist last year at 106 pounds. He's dropping down to 106 pounds. He's the top seed. He was a runner-up there last year. He's joined by some other notable names from Pennsylvania. Kyle Hauserman from Council Rock North. Those two battled back and forth. They each split some matches. And Matt Vulock from Pope John Paul, a state medalist last year. He's now down in AA this year, so he's going to be in the mix there as well. Jeremy, what do you think about this weight?
I'm liking Waterman this time around. I think that we always have this thing where you got to lose to maybe kind of refocus or whatever, and I think that loss at King of the Mountain to Finn Solomon is maybe a wake-up call a little bit for Kyle Waterman. He finished second last year. I like him at this weight. I really like him at this weight. And I like him dropping down, whereas he's a little lanky, so he can be, some problems. He's wrestled 113 most of the year. I think that helps. I think these guys at 106 are going to probably feel – I think he's going to feel strong at 106. So I really like him. I think, granted, he's got some guys that he's going to have to watch, but I really like Kyle to get it done.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think he's the clear number one guy here, but I wouldn't look past Kyle Hauserman or Matt Vulock. But there's another guy here, a freshman, Dante Frenzy from Becca, who I like. I got to see him at the Ironman this year, and I think he's a guy. Talk about lanky. He looks like his brother Luca Frenzy. He's just a little bit shorter than him, but he's so long. He's just really skinny and really long, which makes it very difficult to finish a shot on him. I think he's going to give people problems. He's the 11th seed. I could definitely see him finishing higher than that seed there. You go up to 113 pounds, and you won't see a ton of Pennsylvania wrestlers at the top. That's because there's some of the best in the nation here. The top seed is Nico Nardone from Del Barton. He is currently ranked number 15 in the nation by Flow. He was an Escape the Rock champion last year. He beat Waterman in the finals at 106 pounds, so he's a returning champion. He's a top seed. But right there at number 2 is Dustin Norris from Cincinnati LaSalle. He's ranked number 10 in the nation by Flow, so these are actually flip-flopped. He was third at Escape the Rock last year at 106 pounds, so we see a lot of top talent from outside of Pennsylvania. Some of the guys from Pennsylvania here include Kyle Burkholder from Hempfield. He was a third-place finisher at state last year. Max Mendez from Council Rock South, he's dropping down to 113. He was at 120 for majority of the season. This will be his first time down at 113. You got Dayton Delviscio from Malvern. Jimmy Baxter from Cannon Mac. This is a guy I really like. He beat Gable Strickland earlier this year at the Powerade, who's ranked number 1 in the state. Jimmy Baxter's record's not going to jump out on the screen at you, but he's still a solid wrestler. In fact, last year at the Escape to Rock, he really turned it up. He actually took 5th here in this weight class. So 113, while yes, there's not a lot of Pennsylvania guys at the top, I think this one's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of weights that are fun to watch, and 113's definitely fits that bill. And, you know, if you look at last year's results, you know, you were saying about, you know, not a lot of Pennsylvania. This is one tournament that you see a lot of out-of-state guys winning.
Yeah.
So if a Pennsylvania guy can come up and win this tournament, he's doing something, and really I think gets a leg up in the state. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, a lot of, I mean, especially Del Barton in the lower weights, they're really good.
They're stacked. They're loaded, right? They're
Nico
tough.
Nico Nardone and Anthony Clark are the ones that jump off the page the most. Both of them are returning champions, and they're going to be tough to beat.
I'm looking here at the other seeded wrestlers, and one name that sticks out to me is Cole Bisco from Southern Columbia, who's a freshman. He's a 10th seed. And Jeremy, you got to see him at the Trojan Wars. He's only a freshman, but I know he impressed you, and he's impressed me this year. I think he's going to be able to mix it up with some of these guys. Yeah,
the thing I like about Bisco is the moment doesn't get to him. I mean, it doesn't matter who he's wrestling. He's going to do what he does, and he's going to do it well, and he's not going to worry about who's across the mat. And those guys are really dangerous in a draw because, you know, you think you can win some matches just by who you are. I mean, trust me, Spencer Lee won a lot of matches doing that.
Yeah.
But you're not going to beat Bisco by doing that. He doesn't care who you are. Battle tested, has shown his worth early in the season, and I know he's trying to build momentum. He's pointed to this tournament. He talked about it when we discussed it at Chambersburg. He's kind of focused on this tournament, some of the heavy hitters he's going to face, and it's all about preparing for March.
Well, he's going to have a chance to do it here at the Escape to Rock. I think it's a good field for him to get his feet wet, if you will. If you move up to 120 pounds, another guy who you just mentioned, Anthony Clark from Del Barton, a stud, an absolute stud here at 120 pounds. But the top two guys here are both ranked in the nation. Clark's ranked number 13th in the nation. He was your champion last year. He beat Lucas Bird from Cincinnati LaSalle. He beat him 1-0 last year in the Escape to Rock finals. But Bird comes in ranked number 2 in the nation by Flow. So he's number 2. Clark is number 13. And the reason being is Bird had a great Super 32. He had some big wins there. And but when you look at the seeding for Escape to Rock, Clark's obviously going to get the nod because of the fact that he was a champion last year. He beat Bird 1-0 in the finals. So you look at those two. I mean, from a non-Pennsylvania standpoint, that's a really great matchup to see. I'm excited to see if anyone from Pennsylvania can hang with them. Cam Enriquez is a guy that really impressed me at Powerade. He beat state champion Ryan Sullivan to get to the finals. Chris Kim from Germantown Academy is also another one. You look at Matt Mayer from Bethlehem Catholic. This is a guy who was a state medalist last year at 106. He's bumping up to 120. I really am interested to see how these Pennsylvania guys do against the guys like Clark and Bird.
Well, Clark and Bird have to be the favorites to get to the finals, and I think that's the match everybody wants to see. And I agree with you on Cameron Enriquez. That's a guy you have to watch because, obviously, you beat a state champion, you're pretty good. And I think confidence-wise, that just keeps building and building as the season goes on. And, again, this is probably the last big individual test before you go kind of into that dual meet season or that dual meet playoff season, so to speak.
Right.
And then before you can, start your run to get to Hershey as an individual. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys fare. I think Cameron Enriquez is definitely somebody to watch. And look, I'm interested in all Bethlehem Catholic wrestlers this week because, okay, Jeff Karam's been in the room now for a little. What's the effect? I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and win this tournament handily as from a team aspect.
You think so?
I think they definitely could.
Yeah, I mean, they won it last year. I don't see why they.
Well, it was a little closer last year. I mean, it wasn't. It was 173, 171.5. Yeah,
no, you're right. It came down to the wire here. You're right. One guy that you are not going to look past, because I'm telling you right now, Eamon Logue from Father Judge. This guy's a junior. He's the 7th seed. The kid is a stud. Let me tell you a little bit about Eamon here. He last week beat Killen Delaney from Westchester Henderson 14-5. Ooh. Delaney was a state runner-up last year. He was a state runner-up, and Eamon beat him 14-5. He's undefeated on the season. He's 23-0. He has 16 falls and 1 tech fall, so he's got 17 bonus point victories here. 2 major decisions. I'm very impressed with the way he's been wrestling this year. I actually messaged their coach when I saw that result. I said, is this right? Because I was just shocked by the fact that he was able to destroy Killen Delaney like that. A guy who we got to see at King of Mountain this year, Jeremy, he was a runner-up to Alejandro Herrera Rondon, and I just can't believe how good he is wrestling this year. If he can translate that in, because last year at the Escape the Rock, he wasn't able to get on the podium here, but he's back at 120. I really think he's going to cause problems. I'm not saying he's going to, challenge Anthony Clark and Lucas Bird, but I really can see him causing problems for everyone from 3 to 6 here. I think he's going to be a guy to watch.
I agree with you. I think that's a good wild card, so to speak. You get these guys with something to prove. And by the way, not making to the podium last year. I mean, that sticks with these guys. And he's undefeated. The Killian Delaney thing, again, building momentum. And right. To win a match like that, I mean, that's a huge, huge gap. You got 9 I mean, so it's not like he caught a reversal late in the match. He dominated. So
right. And
it's a guy you don't want to face in the bracket.
No, you definitely don't want to be on his side of the bracket. And you look at it and you say, well, maybe Delaney had a bad match. And Eamon's just been doing it all year. He beat Baylor Shunk from Penns Valley, who's one of the top seniors in the state. He's going to Penn State. He pinned him in 40 seconds earlier this year. I mean, he beat Amon Ole from St. Joe's Academy, another guy who is a state medalist. So he beat a state medalist, 2 state medalists, and a state runner-up all this year.
Look, 9 points is not a bad match.
That's not a fluke, right? That's not a bad match.
I mean, that's not
Delaney
agree. Just having a bad match.
Yeah, so he's one that, and he's never made it to the state tournament before. He was regional 6th place, so this could be a jumping off point for him to say, yeah, I'm for real. I mean, he's going to have a really tough region to get out of in the Northeast. You got a ton of talent there, log jammed, kind of like in the team aspect, but. I'm excited to see how he does this weekend at Escape the Rock. You go up to 126 pounds. This one is led by Sammy Alvarez from St. Joe's Regional, and Alvarez is a guy who's currently ranked number 9 in the nation. The New Jersey and senior here. He's actually going to go to NC State. He is one of the top guys in the nation. And at number 2 is Joey Oliverio from Hanover Park. He's only a sophomore. Patrick Noonan from Stroudsburg. He drops down from 132, where he was a Powerade place winner. He's one of the top guys in the state. He drops down to 126 here, so he adds some firepower. Shane Hansen Ashworth from Council Rock South. He's a guy who's always been in the mix. He's been right there with some of the best guys in the brackets. Kenny Heyman from Canaan Mac is a 7 seed. He's a guy who is 4th at the Powerade, took Colton Camacho to ultimate tiebreaker. Luke Lucerne from Council Rock North is also here. I'm really excited to see this weight class because it's a lot of depth. I think there's a handful of guys here that can make it to the top 8. Colton Jordan from the Chamonix, Liam Logue from Father Judge, Jared Kessler from Conzo. He was a surge champion, so we got to see him up close and personal in the beginning of the season at our tournament. He knocked off a ton of state qualifiers en route to that championship. So 126 may be one of the deeper weight classes that I've seen.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you. I'm wondering if this is the best weight of the tournament because of depth.
Yeah, depth-wise, I would say it probably is. You look at some of the other weights, and they have some of them have like 4 really solid guys, but then outside of that, you're like, yeah, okay, they're not bad, but 26, legit. Colton Jordan from the Chamonix, I think could easily be top 4. Jared Kessler, I think, could be top 8. Lucerne from Council Rock North can be definitely top 8. Kenny Hayman. Yeah, and then you throw in some wild cards, like you said, Sammy Alvarez. He's clearly going to be one of the favorites, if not the favorite here. So there's going to be a lot of guys here at this weight that don't place that end up making the states and placing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how Noonan fares dropping down. I'm always curious about guys dropping weight because right now we're getting into that time when people are going to settle into where they're going to be at the end of the season. So I'm always curious how they fare with the kids that are in their weight. So I'll be interested to see how this transpires and how it shakes out.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see him because he looked pretty big at Powerade, I thought. He was actually third at the Escape the Rock last year at 126. 26 was a pretty loaded weight class. You had Patrick Glory and Logan Macri. So I was kind of surprised to see him able to drop to 26. And I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna show what he's made of here. I think he had a good Powerade, so we'll see if he can translate that into the Escape the Rock. You go up to 132, and this has to be one of the bigger stories of the tournament. That's Julian Klebov making his return to Escape the Rock for the first time since 2017. He was a champion in 2016 as a freshman, runner-up as a sophomore. Didn't wrestle last year. Now he's the top seed at 132, but he's going to have a familiar foe, Kenny Herman from Becca, who is the 11th grader. He's the second seed. These two have met multiple times throughout the season here, but Julian Klebov is one of the top-ranked guys in the nation. This is going to be nice to see him back at the Escape the Rock. It's been a while. Yeah,
I think this is just one of many tournament wins. The rest of the season, I expect him to win this weight, and I expect him to win a state title, possibly, depending what Sammy Hilligus does, which is, depending who goes where. I'm circling that one. That's the match I want to see more than anything. So I'm hoping they both stay there and don't move around. But this weekend, I think Julian Klebov, how's he going to be? Is he in shape? Is he back in shape? I think those are the things we look at this weekend. What's he look like on the mat? So I know I haven't seen him yet this year, so I'll be anxious to see how he fares.
You look at where they rank, and Julian Klebov comes in ranked number 8th in the nation by flow, and Kenny Herman comes in ranked number 13th. So, we're talking about two high-quality wrestlers here, both from District 11, competing at 132 pounds. Some other guys that you keep an eye on, Patrick Edmondson from Southern Columbia. He's a state medalist from last year. There's not a ton of depth here at 132. There just isn't. I'm not even going to try to attempt the name at 132 pounds, the third seed from Hanover Park. Not even going to try. There's about 19 letters there. Jeremy, if you want to give it a shot, there's no way.
No.
Di Francantano. I said I wasn't going to try, but I did. I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce that.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, sounds okay to me. One guy that I was surprised that, well, I guess I'm not that surprised that he wasn't here because he comes in ranked number 9 in the nation. That's Malik Hines from Kissimmee Osceola in Florida. He's actually bumped up he's ranked number 9 in the nation at 132, but he's going to be competing at 138 where he's the top seed there. Matt Lackman from Becca is the second seed. This is a guy who's done nothing but compete well in big tournaments such as the Ironman. He comes in ranked in the nation. He's actually ranked number 14th in the nation. TT Elijah from Lower Dolphin is also here. He was a medalist here at the Escape the Rock last year. Dalton Harkins from Malvern. So as I said here, you got 4 really solid guys, but then you throw in number 7, Ty Linsenbigler from Hempfield area, who I'm a big fan of. I think he's wrestled well this year, and he's down at 38, more natural weight for him. So 38 is an intriguing one for me.
I agree, and again, I'm going to have my eye on the guys from Bethlehem Catholic because I want to see just what they look like and how they fare. So, and the other thing is TT Elijah. I want to know this is going to be, I think, his biggest test to see where he's at. I mean, really for the whole Lower Dolphin squad. And, District 3 last year was shut out of the Champions list from Escape the Rock. That doesn't always happen. So, we're going to see how some of these guys fare, and especially like Clayton Ulrey's won for Lower Dolphin, which we'll get to in a minute. So anxious to see how the District 3 guys fare this weekend.
You go up to 145, and if you want to keep your eyes on Bethlehem Catholic guys, 145 is one you can't miss, and that's Ryan Anderson, the senior. He's going to Iowa State. He's number one in the nation. He's ranked number one in the nation for a reason. He won the Ironman. He's a Super 32 champion from 2 years ago, and he's a guy who I just love watching wrestle. He has a high pace. He just keeps on going and going and going. He was a runner-up here last year. He was second last year. He had a tough finals match where he lost in I believe it was ultimate tiebreaker. It was an ultimate tiebreaker against Quinn Kinner from Kingsway, New Jersey. That was a tough match for him, but I think he comes back, and I think he's the clear favorite here at 145 pounds. Cam Robinson from Council Rock North. He did not place here at the Escape the Rock last year. However, he had a really good offseason, and thus far he's done really well for himself. He placed at the Powerade tournament, and he comes in ranked number 17 in the nation. So clearly he's a guy who gets some respect on the national level. Then you have Jagger Condomiti from Northampton. Very under the radar, in my opinion. I think he's a guy who's gonna break out eventually. He's gonna really get a big win on him, and I think Escape the Rock is his kind of where he shined last year. Last year he beat Patrick Noonan in the early rounds last year. Kind of bounced out of nowhere. I mean, not that he came out of nowhere, but we were kind of surprised to see him win that early on, and he beat Patrick Noonan 10-1. Before falling to Kenny Herman. So I think he's a guy you can't look past. I think he's a guy who's going to be in the mix for the top 2 finish. Evan Wilding from Penridge is another guy to keep your eye on. AJ Tamburino for William Tennant. This guy's a junior. He's undefeated on the season. He's been injured and out of the lineup in and out for the last couple years here. He's a guy that wrestles all year round. He's very solid. I think he's going to surprise people, probably finish ahead of that 7th seed.
Yeah, I'm always cautious. I mean, there again, when you have guys seeded down who maybe is better than his seed, it always kind of rocks the boat in the bracket. But I mean, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. This is Ryan Anderson's to lose.
Yeah, for sure.
I just think right now he's wrestling up to that number 1 ranking, and I think it's his show. But it will be interesting to see who it's going to be a battle for that runner-up spot. Tate Nichter's in that group as well from Chambersburg, and it'll be interesting to see how he fares. I mean, he's a sophomore. I mean, going to this tournament, it's a tough tournament. It's kind of I don't want to say this is a loaded weight. I think 126 is obviously better.
Yeah, but 45 is pretty stacked too. It's
pretty good, and we're going to learn a lot about Tate Nichter in this weight class.
I agree. And you look at District 1 here. District 1's very well represented. Cam Robinson, Evan Wadding as well, Anthony Petrocelli from O&J Roberts, and AJ Tamburino. And then you go down and Eric Woolshan, who's a state qualifier. So you got a lot of guys here from District 1 that are out to prove something. Then you throw in Caesar Fountain from Father Judge, a guy who actually beat Cam Robinson earlier this year. Tate Nichter's going to have his hands full with these guys. So I agree. 26, 45, probably the two of the deepest weight classes. If you move up to 152 pounds, that is going to be Ryan Vulak from Pope John Paul. He is your number 1 seed here, and this is a guy who was a Powerade champion. He was a Beast of the East champion. He's a guy that's very highly regarded. He's going to George Mason University, but he's going to have his hands full here. He's got Cole Handlovic from Bethlehem Catholic, who's sitting right there at the number 2 spot. He was a state medalist last year. Vulak was 3rd in the nation last year, or 3rd in the state, last year. He comes in ranked number 2 in the nation by flow, so clearly he gets some respect. Cole Handlovic comes in number 13th in the nation. The one guy here who kind of got the shaft a little bit is Dan Mancini from O&J Roberts.
I was just going to mention him.
Yeah, he definitely got a little bit of not a little bit. He definitely got the shaft a little bit at 152 pounds. He's ranked number 10 in the nation. He's going to Virginia Tech. He's a Fargo All-American. The kid's well respected. He gets kind of slighted a little bit here at the Escape the Rock, and I think I understand a little bit why with some of the guys here, but he's only a 5th seed, so you could have a potential Ryan Vulak and Dan Mancini semifinal, which would be a barn burner.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing with Mancini, I mean, you have him ranked number 1 in the state.
He is, yeah. I have him ranked number 1 in the state.
He's finished 4th last year in the PIAA championships. The big stage isn't going to bother him, and I think again, having something to prove. I always love, those kids interviewing those kids who maybe didn't get the seed that they thought they should have. They seem, I don't want to say wrestle over their heads, but they wrestle very motivated. So it'll be interesting to see what Dan Mancini does this weekend with that seed. I mean, number 5
right.
and facing Vulak. What a semifinal.
It really would be. And a guy who I think it maybe a little overlooked is Jackson Erb from the Chamonix. Jackson Erb is a guy who was a state qualifier last year. He just came back last week. He beat Patrick O'Neill. He bumped up to 160 and beat Patrick O'Neill. He's a guy you obviously can't look past either. So 52, definitely an exciting one. It doesn't stop there because 160 gets very interesting because you have Thane Lawrence from Fraser. Thane's one of my favorite wrestlers to watch out of Fraser, Pennsylvania. And he's a guy who is just now getting back in the lineup. He was at the Ironman, got a little banged up. So now he's back and he is the top seed here. He's a guy who was a state champion last year. He beat Justin McCoy in a wonderful match where he was able to come back from a big defeat at the regional tournament to win the state title here. He's ranked number 10 in the nation. Only as a junior, right? So he's a guy who's well respected. But also in here you have Clayton Ulrey from Lower Dauphin, who's number 16 in the nation. So 2 guys here that are both ranked in the nation. And you looked at Luca Frenzy. Luca Frenzy from Becca actually beat Ulrey here last year. That was a loaded weight class at 152 pounds. Frenzy actually was your runner-up. He beat Ulrey in the semifinals. Ulrey falls down to take 5th place. So this is going to be an interesting weight class because, like you said with TT Elijah, Clayton Ulrey is going to have his hands full. You saw him at the Trojan Wars, and he was not really bothered by the competition there. Can he do it again?
It's going to be tough. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. Fun to watch. I mean, he is – I mean, it's on tilt for the entire 6 minutes. He gets after it. He might be one of the busiest – I know this year he's the busiest wrestler I've seen. I mean, there's no wasted effort. There's no – I mean, he gets after it. So if it comes down to conditioning, you're not going to out-condition Clayton Ulrey.
Right.
So, I mean, he's number 1 in the state in our rankings, and I'm anxious to see how he fares against some of these other guys, like a Luca Frenzy, for instance. See if he can avenge that, move on, and get this title and improve on finishing 5th last year.
Yeah, this is a curious weight because Thane Lawrence last year at the Escape to Rock, he lost to Frenzy in sudden victory. Then he medical forfeits out of it. Ulrey loses to Frenzy in the semifinals and finishes 5th. Both those guys had, in my opinion, better state performances than Frenzy did. Frenzy, they're both state medalists. All 3 of them were, but Lawrence is the one who won it. So I would not be surprised if either these 3, Lawrence, Frenzy, and Ulrey, if any 3 of those win it, I really wouldn't be surprised because clearly you can't say, well, Thane Lawrence is a state champion. There's no way he's going to lose. Well, yeah, last year he lost to Frenzy. So especially this is his first tournament back. So I like this weight class here. Nick Feldman from Malvern Prep is a freshman. This is a guy you're going to be hearing that name for. It's like a Michael Beard. I think he's going to be the next Michael Beard. He's done really well this season at both the Ironman and Powerade. Matt Colagesi from Council Rock South, also a freshman at 160. He's dropping down from 170. He's a guy that I would not look past either. So maybe not as much depth as weights like 26 and 45, but still high-powered wrestlers here at the top.
No, I agree, and I would maybe make the argument that it is as deep. I mean, we're running down these names, and with Colagesi moving down, I think just adds to this weight. And I'm anxious to see it. I mean, that's one where, how does he, making that drop, now he's a freshman. That's,
right.
How's a freshman going to deal being in his own building, or being in his, at home, wrestling against top flight competition like that. But still, I like the move and anxious to see that weight. And me, we're starting to get into the weight classes that I'm not wild about, but I like that one.
So if you're excited, then it means something, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Well, you go up to 170. We're creeping up here, and that's Luke Nichter from Chambersburg, a guy you're very familiar with. Luke Nichter was a state runner-up last year. He's highly regarded. He's ranked number 2 in the state currently, only behind Edmund Ruth. So he's a guy who's going to be in the hunt for a state title. He comes in ranked number 12 in the nation by flow, and he's a guy who, as you mentioned before, with kind of proving it, he's a guy who has to do that this year, I think, especially at this weight. I think he's a guy who last year he got majored in the semifinals by Jackson Turley. He comes back, takes 4th. He loses to Scott Joel, but here at 170 again, he's going to have his hands full. Angel Garcia from Marina Borschetti, and he's a guy who's done well for himself. He's a big freestyle and Greco guy, and that kind of translates on the mat with him. He's going to be in the mix. He actually bumped up to 82 and beat Jake Lucas from Cumberland Valley, so he's not afraid to mix it up with bigger guys. Lenny Pinto from Stroudsburg, a guy I've been impressed with. He's only a sophomore, but he's a guy who I think you have to keep an eye on. So Luke Nichter, this is a chance to really cement himself as one of the top guys in the nation. He was a runner-up Beast of the East champion at Trojan Wars. Can he do it again here at Escape the Rock? I
like his chances this year, and I think I'm seeing a different type of confidence from him than I saw at last year's. He made the finals last year, but watching him this year, I think he's on a collision course with Edmund Ruth, and it's the match everyone wants to see. And I think this is just a stepping stone to upping his game for that match. So I like Luke Nichter in this weight. I think he can get past Pinto and Garcia, although they're both state qualifiers. So definitely, right, nothing to sneeze at. But I do think he's just shoulders above them.
Well, speaking of a little bit of guys who need to come out and prove it, you go up to 182 pounds, and this one is a very interesting weight class, and this is going to be Jackson Turley from St. Christopher's. He's a Rutgers recruit. He is your top seed at 182 pounds. And last year, he won it. He won 170 pounds last year. As I mentioned, he beat Luke Nichter by major decision and then beat an ultimate tiebreaker, Gage Garcia from Southern Columbia. So he was a champion, but he's moving up to 182. Last year, this is something where we've seen it before. He had a really good tournament here last year. He was a guy who kind of, being the top seed here last year, Gage Garcia gave him a really good match. But Garrett Ninehouse from Cannon Mac, a guy who's one of the top in the nation, he was a runner-up here. He lost to Zach Hartman from Bell Vernon in the finals at 160 pounds. So he's up 2 weight classes here. Ninehouse comes in ranked number 5 in the nation. Jackson Turley comes in ranked number 7. So this is going to be, I think these two are on a collision course. Scott Joel's here as well, but Scott Joel, he's in a really deep weight class. He's probably going to be the 3rd best out of the WPIL at that weight class. He comes in as your 4th seed. I'm really, really, really excited to see Ninehouse and Turley. I think these two are going to put on a match.
I agree with you. But Turley beat Gage Garcia. I saw him down at Trojan Wars as well. And if you can beat that guy, then you're doing something.
You're doing something right.
Yeah,
I agree with you there.
Jackson Turley's definitely somebody to watch, and like you said, I think Ninehouse and Turley are the class of this field, and I think that's going to be your final.
Yeah, I agree to you as well. And Garrett Ninehouse is a guy who was a runner-up at Power. He lost to Carter Starocki, but he was right there with them. So moving up to 195, and this is your boy. This may be your new boy, Gage Garcia. The kid's a tank, man. The kid's he's a heck of a wrestler and a heck of a football player. He's your number 1 seed here, 2-time state medalist. He is currently one of the top-ranked guys in the nation as well, and he's here. He's sitting atop here. Last year he was a runner-up, as I said, to Jackson Turley. So can he get over that hump? How did he look at Trojan Wars being up that weight?
It was no contest, and that's what I mean. He annihilated that field, and he's not a big imposing guy. Like, I didn't look at him and go, oh wow, he's just he looks his weight, but boy, when he gets on the mat, look out. I think he just dominated that field. I walked away from that really, really impressed with him. So I'm interested to see now how he escaped the rock. Probably a little more challenging. You're probably gonna have Jacob Miller in there and some other guys, so I'm anxious to see that. But I just Gage Garcia looked really, really good to me.
Yeah, and he comes in ranked number 7 in the nation by flow. He's number 2 in the state. I think he's a guy who's poised to have a good tournament and a good season overall. So I'm excited to see him. Jacob Miller, as you said, from Boyertown is another guy who I want to keep an eye on. Justin Kramer from Hempfield and Logan Green from Penridge are also guys I'm going to keep an eye on. You definitely see it start to thin out a little bit here at 195, but still, like you said, Gage Garcia is must-see wrestling, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I look for him to dominate this weight.
He is. I think he's your new number 1 here. I mean, you really...
I don't know.
You don't know?
Finn Solomon,
You just love the Solomons. You're just jumping on, the Solomon train here, I guess. I don't know.
Look good at King of the Mountain.
Yeah, certainly did, and we'll see how he does moving forward. Let's go up to 220 pounds, and that is going to be Thomas Micaiah from J.W. Robinson is your top seed. Wade Wheeler from Amherst is your second seed. P.J. Cassile from Del Barton is your third seed. Flynn Lee from Paulsboro is your fourth seed. So you got all out-of-staters here, 1 through 4. Not a lot of PA power here. I'm a little disappointed, but Mackay is a guy who was here last year for J.W. Robinson. He made it to the semifinals and then ended up finishing in 4th place here. So I would assume he would be, as you had mentioned, the favorite, but a little bit definitely more wide open.
Yeah, I saw Mackay at Trojan Wars again. JW was there. I think, he's got to be the favorite at this weight. Moves pretty well. I was pretty, me, higher weights I'm not enthused about.
You're basically ignoring them, right?
No, I don't ignore them. I mean, that's a big stretch, and I think this year at heavyweight, I know we talked about that last week. I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to, as we said, Red Robin's looking a little later and later.
Yeah, you're right.
From the PIAA. Not that we're going to not do it, because Red Robin's a must after.
And absolutely. They know what I'm getting.
Yeah, but Mackay's a guy to watch. Moves really well, and I think that's going to be hard to deal with in this field.
Well, some of the Pennsylvania wrestlers I think could give a push here. Dylan Ferretti from Hempfield area, Preston Zachman from Southern Columbia are two guys that jump off the page at me. But again, not a ton of depth here, especially for the Pennsylvania wrestlers. If you go up to 285, this is a weight where, again, a non-Pennsylvania wrestler is your top seed. That's Jonathan Birchmeyer from Broad Run. He's a guy who comes in ranked number 5 in the nation. He's going to Navy. Very sound wrestler for him. He's ranked ahead of a guy like Michael Wolfgram. So he's your clear number 1 here. But Isaiah Vance from Hempfield, wait till you see this guy. He really can move for a heavyweight. He's big. He's strong. I think he's only going to get better. He's only a sophomore, so clearly he's young, but I like the way he wrestles. He was a state qualifier last year. Sammy Kamias from Stroudsburg is also here. Jace Krause from Bethlehem Catholic. And your buddy from Lower Dolphin as well, another Lower Dolphin guy, Jeremy, that you said needs to prove it.
Absolutely. You get these there's 3 Lower Dolphin guys that really jump off the page. It's TT and Clayton Ulrey, and then obviously Kyler Wiesner. And he's ranked 4th in the state according to PA Power. He's looked impressive every time I've seen him. So, again, this is his chance to prove it on a big stage. I think this is a bigger stage, obviously, than Trojan Wars, albeit the Trojan Wars are getting better and seem to be improving every year. Escape the Rock This is one where if you etch your name and are at the top of the podium, people are going to turn heads. So, again, Kyler Wiesner this week, it'll be interesting to see how he fares in this bracket.
Yep, I agree with you, and this is a good time to prove it and to show really where you belong, and if that fourth place ranking is exactly where you need to be. If you look at the schedule of events, Saturday it kicks off at 10 a.m. Sunday it'll start at 9 a.m. Finals are estimated to start at 4 p.m. So you can follow all along at PA Power Wrestling. We'll be giving you some updates here. We'll be doing some stories. You can watch live on Flow Wrestling as well. That's where the brackets are going to be on the Flow Arena. But man, Jeremy, I'm excited, man. Like you said, this is the last real big individual tournament before we start going into the team postseason.
And I think team is something to look at here. Bethlehem Catholic 2nd in the state, Northampton 5th, Council Rock South 6th, Hempfield area 10th, Stroudsburg 12th, Cannon Mac 13th, Owen J. Roberts 14th, Bordertown 17th. Here's the other thing. Southern Columbia is really the only big AA team here. And there's something to be said for being battle tested. And Southern Columbia comes into this tournament second in the state, according to PA Power. Look at me pimping out your rankings. I want to see what they're made of. And they were pretty good at the Trojan Wars, and there's something to be said for getting in tough matches and having wrestlers that deal with top flight and face top flight competition. In Southern Columbia, this tournament could be a springboard to good results in the dual meet season.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is a good way to really push that envelope a little bit and get that hard competition in before you start going to that team aspect of it. So it's going to be good for them to really have this test, as you said. And I agree with you. Battle tested is something that you have to be in order to do well come February, March. So again, I think this is going to be a good test for all the Pennsylvania wrestlers, especially because Ed Evans and his staff there at the Escape the Rock does such a good job of getting some really high-end quality talent coming in, especially from out of state, the New Jerseys, Virginia, all over, so which is pretty neat to see. So I'm excited for it. I'm not excited for the snow. I'm not excited for the drive, but I'm excited for the wrestling. So unfortunately, Jeremy, you won't make it there, but if you want to follow along, you should probably jump on to papowerwrestling.com and do that while you're at your conference.
Oh, I'll definitely do it, because if the weather's bad, I'm going to be standing there doing not much. So hopefully, the weather breaks, the tournament goes off well, everybody's safe. All the teams are safe, you're safe, and everything works out. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm anxious to see the results. I'll be checking them out and seeing who is where.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for another episode of the PA Power Podcast. And Jeremy, we may see you again. I mean, you're always welcome here. So as long as you keep coming, we'll keep having you on. So join us again. Maybe Jeremy, you'll get to see him again. Maybe it's Eric Knopsar. I don't know.
Anytime that you guys want to have me on, it's an honor to be on. I feel blessed to be part of the site, to be able to write about wrestling again. Don't get to do as much as I want to right now, but I know the rest of this year will be better, and then obviously like to come back again next year.
Well, #blessed. I like that, Jeremy.
Yeah, and I don't use that often.
#blessed. You're like one of those young kids now. I like it. Like when you just committed to college. I'm #blessed to be have this opportunity. Listen, follow along for the Escape the Rock and all other tournaments. Eric Knopsner is going to be putting together a preview of the Ultimate Duels up in Brookville. Check out our college podcast, the War Up podcast. Check out updated rankings, all on papowerwrestling.com, your one-stop shop for all your wrestling needs. Follow us on Twitter at PAPowerWrestle. You can listen to all these episodes on Spotify and iTunes. And until next week, keep it classy, wrestling fans.